During the Middle Ages, the Crusades were military expeditions led mostly by Western Europeans with the goal of defending and expanding Christendom. But first, let's take one step back to see why Christianity was so important that there were even military campaigns launched for it. Christianity started at about 4 years BC, which is quite ironic given how BC means before Christ, and became quite popular even before the start of the Middle Ages at 476 AD, and caused Rome to split into two parts on the way to that time. The main reason why Christianity became the leading religion is because monks were creating monasteries and acting as missionaries to convert the local pagan tribes. Additionally, some rulers such as Emperor Charlemagne were converting the tribes to Christianity by force, and some rulers wanted to unite the whole world under the Christian Empire. Eventually, the majority of the civilized world became Christian, but there were still other religions present, such as Judaism, with its following being nomadic Jews, paganism, with its following being people who believed that gods lived in natural things such as trees, lakes and mountains, and Islam, which was established in the year 622 AD and wasn't present in Europe at all other than Portugal and Spain, but was mostly flourishing outside of it. Sometime later, to be exact in the year 637 AD, Muslim army under the command of Abu Ubaidah captured Jerusalem, a holy land for the Christian people, in a siege that is described as bloodless. At the time, Jerusalem was occupied by Byzantines under the command of Sophronius, but after a 4-month siege of the city, Sophronius surrendered the city to the Muslims. Muslims then proceeded to occupy Jerusalem for quite a while after that, but everything changed in 1095. With the First Crusade. The First Crusade was a military campaign launched to recapture Jerusalem and the Holy Land from Muslims. Around 60,000 people from all across Europe participated in the First Crusade, which started off in 1095. After campaigns in Anatolia, which is located in Turkey, and the Middle East, a few great cities were captured, and then the objective, Jerusalem itself. During the Christian conquest, the majority of Jerusalem was slaughtered, Jews and Muslims alike. Some people put that number at tens of thousands, some say that it was only 3,000, we can't tell for sure. It took 4 years, but finally, in 1099, Jerusalem was captured. After that, the remaining people of the Crusade came back to Europe, some returned with some holy artifacts, some with gold, and Jerusalem remained under Christian control. Some years later, the Egyptian Empire tried to take Jerusalem, but they failed before they even arrived there. The First Crusade was extremely successful, so when the city of Edessa, an important Christian commercial and cultural center in Mesopotamia, fell to the Muslim Seljuk Turks in 1144 AD, a couple of years later, in 1144 the Pope launched a crusade to recapture it. They had an army of 60,000 people and the presence of 2 Western kings, but still, they lost. Ultimately, this did not grant the Christian Empire any advantages and only caused more tension between the Byzantine Empire and the West. The main reason why this crusade was unsuccessful is because the Crusaders chose to attack Damascus, a city that had been an ally to the Christian Empire before. This was a grave error because it turned an ally into an enemy and opened the Crusaders up for an attack from multiple fronts. After that unfortunate failure, the Muslims took Jerusalem again in 1187 AD under the command of Saladin. So to take it back, again, the Third Crusade was launched in 1189, this time led by 3 monarchs, but still they failed to retake the Holy City. They did have some notable victories, such as the capture of Acre and the Battle of Arsuf, but by the time the monarchs arrived at Jerusalem, they found themselves with insufficient men or resources to resist the remaining armies. They, however, did negotiate a compromise in which pilgrims were allowed access into Jerusalem. But that was not enough for the Christian Empire. So in 1202, the Fourth Crusade was called to attempt to retake Jerusalem once again, but in the middle of the march for Jerusalem, they decided to turn around and attack Constantinople instead, the Constantinople of the Byzantine Empire, who were one of the main supporters of the Christian Empire. So when a year later the Crusader army arrived at Constantinople, Alexios III Angelos was completely unprepared for the attack and fled the city 3 weeks after the attack was launched. The Crusaders expected this, and they already had a successor who they were going to put on the throne. However, an unexpected usurper stepped in and vowed to protect Constantinople against the Crusaders. Then, with the Crusaders' supply being dangerously low, they had no choice but to launch an all-in attack on the city. They launched the attack on April 9th, 1204, but they were repelled by the Byzantines. 3 days later, they attacked the weaker walls of the Constantinople harbor with their ships and managed to smash through the city gates. After they broke into the city, they massacred the citizens, desecrated the churches, destroyed important artworks, and exported religious goods back to Europe. After After the looting, a peace treaty was made between the Venetians, the attackers, and Byzantines, which gave Venetians 3/8 of Constantinople. The following crusades after the First War all happened in the 1200s and all resulted in failure. In the Fifth Crusade, Crusaders tried attacking Egypt but were forced to surrender by armies of Saladin's nephew, Al-Malik. In the Sixth Crusade, Emperor Frederick II managed to peacefully gain control of Jerusalem, but after the peace treaty expired 10 years later, Muslims easily gained control of Jerusalem again. The Seventh Crusade had the same ideas as the sixth one, attacking Egypt, but this one also managed to fail. The Eighth Crusade failed before it even started, when the king leading the crusade suddenly died. And when it came to the last crusade, also known as Lord Edward's Crusade, the Crusaders managed to repel Muslim attackers from the city of Acre, and it was the last battle on the Holy Land. Now, for a short summary of everything that happened. First, Muslims took control of Jerusalem. Then the First Crusade was launched to recapture it. Some years later, Muslims retook the Holy Land, and when the Second Crusade was launched by the Christians, it was unsuccessful. So was the Third Crusade, waged to capture Jerusalem. The Fourth Crusade was also launched to recapture Jerusalem, but they had turned around to attack Constantinople instead, one of the main allies, and in that, they were successful. The following 5 Crusades did not achieve much, with 4 of them being unsuccessful. That concludes my project about Crusades. Thank you for listening.